We're with WAS Journalism, and we're going to review Brightside, the new Lumineers album. So, Brightside is the fourth studio album released by the American indie folk band, the Lumineers. Released on January 14th, 2022. It's 30 minutes and 2 seconds long.
Brightside, their first single, was released September 20th, 2021, and then Big Shot was released October 13th, 2021, and last was AM Radio, which was released November 17th, 2021. On its release, it had very positive reviews, and the fans were really into it.
Yeah. So, historically, some of the defining things about the Lumineers is that their music has a sort of defining sound, at least for their first three albums. I would say that their third album takes a little bit of a different direction, but it's still pretty much uniquely the Lumineers sound. Their lyrics have a lot of thought and effort put behind them and often have a really big meaning or a hidden one, I would say.
Or they're linked together, which is
Yes, their whole third album tells a story about a family battling with addiction, and all of the songs follow this one family through its generations. So they have a lot of hidden meaning behind their songs, and they put a ton of effort and hidden clues into their music videos as well. Another thing that the Lumineers have said is that they try really hard to make their albums sound new. So a rap artist pretty stereotypically has a specific sound, but they want to try and tweak their sound a little bit every time that they release something new. So while that's a great idea, I don't think that it worked out for them in this album.
Yeah, in theory, it was a good choice, but the way that they executed it was not.
One way that it worked was with their third album. That was definitely something new and something I think the music industry hasn't seen before.
Yeah, but it definitely didn't stray too far from their roots. It was still in their range.
Yes. So diving into their album, Brightside, they released a third of the album in singles before they dropped it. So we were just talking about their singles, which was Brightside, AM Radio, and Big Shot. There's only 9 songs on the album. As I said, it's pretty short. It's 30 minutes long. So when you release 3 singles, I was expecting the album to be bigger. It's one of their shorter ones for sure. So that was a little bit of a letdown lengthwise, I would say. And also an interesting move when they didn't have a lot. I just thought it was an interesting choice to release a third of the album.
Yeah, especially their headlining song for the album.
The song that it's named after. So diving into that song, Brightside, that was the first single released. The lyrics aren't their typical song. It's not hidden or it's not hard to guess. It's really easy to understand the meaning behind them. It's pretty catchy and repetitive. The first time I listened to it, I was yeah, I love it because it's the first new music that I've heard since 2019.
Yeah. But
it
it went on way too long with the same things.
It's very repetitive, yeah.
Yes.
So initially I liked it, but the more that I listened to it, I was I'm not sure that I actually like this. Yeah. And I thought something funny that you said when we were discussing this was, I can't think of a time where I'm man, I want to listen to that. And I think that describes most of this album pretty well, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't pick it for my playlist or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought that Wesley's voice was just so scratchy and reaching for notes that he just wasn't able to grab.
And he was just very loud. Typically with the Lumineers music, it's very it's not soft-spoken, but it's a lower tone.
Yeah,
or a lower voice range. I think for the majority of these songs, I think there was maybe 1 or 2 where he was in his vocal range and it worked, but...
Yeah, you could definitely just see the difference through the whole thing. Even the chords matched up better.
Yeah.
Sounded better.
Yeah. And then their third single that they released was their second track on the album. So again, Wesley's voice really sounded like a struggle. And it's super loud. The whole album was super loud. In fact, all of their songs in the entire album are all in all caps, which is an interesting choice. I've seen artists do that in the past. I think that it fits with how loud they were being in that.
Yeah, I also, though, just didn't think that fit with them either. They're not the, I'm yelling at you, I'm delivering this softly, and I'm, letting you know a point, but I'm not, ramming into your head.
Yeah. Like, they are described as an indie folk band, and I think they were going in a really heavy rock direction, almost, which was an abrupt change that I don't think any of the fans were expecting.
Yeah, and specifically for this song, they actually did have the piano that they had in past albums, which was really nice, just to have a reminder of that, for sure.
Another thing that I want to touch on is it's really harder to understand the meaning behind these lyrics in this one, but I like how it sounds similar to their past albums and their past songs, and I would say it's one of their better songs on the album. I actually wouldn't say that it's their best, but it's not as annoying as like Where We Are, which is the next song, which I cannot stand. I hate his voice in this. I have some really negative views. Funnily enough, this is one of my really good friend's favorite songs on the album. I'm not sure how I agree with that, but I think like the piano that we have in the beginning doesn't fit with the vocal range that Wesley is singing in, and then the lyrics that he's singing. I definitely think that the lyrics should have been paired with like a different tune. And then going on that, if you listen to some of like their songs before that they were released, or like what they were working on, they workshopped it a little more, and then you get the final product. It sounds like what they were working on before. It sounds like, I think 2 different songs could come out of Where We Are and they would be great on their own, but when they're combined like they did, I don't think it worked at all. No. So that leads me to feel like that it wasn't like fully finished, or it just like needed to be worked on more, which sucks because I'm a huge Lumineers fan.
Yeah, it like pains me to talk so
it
badly.
Does. Yeah.
But I mean, I was very disappointed.
Yeah. And then like nothing in the album meshes well together. Each of the songs are so vastly different, which is a huge shock from their last album, which was all interconnected.
Yeah.
It kind of just sounds like 50 different thoughts slammed together, and then it like goes on forever repeating the same lyrics, which is Where We Are, I don't know where we are, and it just gets too much.
Especially it's almost like they switched from like the major key to the minor key on that too.
And then their fourth track was Birthday, which is kind of like a new take on the birthday song, sort of, which I thought was really fun. It's pretty sweet, but again, it just sounds like he's struggling to reach the higher notes, which sucks because it had potential to be a really beautiful song. I liked the lyrics.
Yeah, one of my favorite songs from their third album, Left for Denver, this song like resembled it in not the lyrics but the music, and so I kind of liked it sometimes.
Big Shot, so like it's definitely one of the more likable ones, up with like AM radio, because Wesley's in his range, and then there's really good piano.
It still sounds like the other songs in that it doesn't really work well, but it's definitely better to listen to. It would be one of the ones that I wouldn't skip the song if it came on.
Definitely. However, Brightside, I just wouldn't. Yeah. I wouldn't give it as much love.
Yeah,
as they are currently.
Yeah, it was hyped up so much, and it's for the fans that did appreciate it. Like,
good for them.
Good.
Like I wish that I could be them, because
sure.
I love the Lumineers. Again, it's like it has a better ending. It doesn't fade out weirdly, and it's one of their better songs. And then their next song was Never Really Mind. Initially, I liked it. Wesley is like stretching his voice a little bit past his vocal range, but not as much, so it's like it's better, but it's still not great. And the repetition in the song I actually do like, as opposed to some of their other ones.
When he gets to the bridge and he starts high, but then he drops low, and when it gets low, you're like, wow, I wish I could have heard more of that. Like, it really fits and suits the song. Honestly, that was really my only problem with this song, was his voice reaching for something he couldn't quite get.
And I think that's my problem with the majority of it. I think that, like, what happened was during 2020 and 2021, they both Jeremiah Freites and Wesley Schultz, worked on their own independent albums. And I think that you can hear some of like what Wesley found when he was creating his independent album in this album, and I think it doesn't work. I think that they found both their individual things that they liked, and it doesn't work well together. And so when they tried to mesh it, this was the product.
Yeah, maybe they needed some more time together, like workshopping some things after they had...
Yeah. So I think that might be why we have this sort of album, but again, I don't know for sure. And then Roller Coaster, it's one of the last 3 songs on the album. I liked it. I liked the piano, as I said. Jeremiah does the piano and the drums mostly, and he did amazing. It's a more relaxed song, and it's pretty sweet.
I really appreciated the song overall.
And then Remington, I loved it. He was not screaming in my ear like the other ones. He had a lovely low voice here with some voice cracks, but again, it like worked for how they are. Yeah, it's just because
it's so broken. Like the lyrics are always broken in that way.
And as I'm saying that out loud, it doesn't sound like that would be enjoyable to listen to, but it really is. It works for them. It has a good chord progression, and like I said, they usually try to take their music in a new direction and tweak it a little bit every album. That song worked. They took it in a new direction, and it worked.
It did.
For only that song. And then Reprise, we both have different thoughts on that. I think it's good. I liked it. It's kind of a mashup of all of the songs. It's pretty upbeat. There's some repetition in it, which I like, and there's piano, which I love, but I know you have different opinions.
Yeah, well, for me, I just felt like the majority of the song was from Brightside, and I did not like Brightside.
And I would say Where We Are as well.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I don't like those songs, so I have no idea why I like the Reprise.
But it also, for me, was just, I felt like they were trying to add another song, but... just because it would have been so short without that song. Like, 8 songs feels like, oh, this doesn't even need to be an album.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
But, I mean, I respect it.
I don't know. I thought it was like a nice little like bow on top of the album that like tied it together. And I think it would have been better if there were more songs on the album where you could put in like more hidden like lyrics and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's definitely, I like Remington and Reprise because they flow into each other. So those are definitely 2 of my favorites.
Well, you did notice in Reprise that the whole album as a whole, like, went together. Even if it didn't go with their other albums, like, I felt like the songs had a similar sound.
Like, typically their albums have a lot of meaning behind them, and with this album it follows suit. It's pretty much mostly about Wesley's wife, and their, like, early, like, relationship when he was touring and stuff like that. So that's pretty sweet. I would definitely say, like, it's really disappointing for how much they had hyped it up beforehand. And whatever they were going for didn't work. It sounded like they were trying to go into like different genres, either rock or pop, which neither is really their sound and neither works for them. Again, it's not going to be one of their memorable albums, which is upsetting. It makes me really upset to hate on this album like we are.
I really want to be able to... I think if they had waited just a little longer...
and worked on it a little bit more and just like found a good middle ground between their individual sounds and then who they are as the Lumineers.
And they are such like writers that I feel like they could have given these songs to someone else and their sounds could have matched better.
Yes, definitely.
Like some people had a bigger range even, just like a little bit. And I hate that.
They've worked with other artists in the past too. So that definitely could have been an option. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts on this, and thanks for listening.